Greetings to you from the right source, and welcome to the first live webinar for my new online resource for writing called the Write Academy. I am so excited about sharing this new community with you. I am Dr. A. Giselle Jones and will be your facilitator for this session. The session is entitled 10 Easy Steps to Writing Effective Grant Proposals the Right Way with the Right Source. Now, I know that's a long title, but the goal for this course is not to present you with a quote-unquote get a grant quick plan or get rich quick kind of thing. No. Instead, the goal is to present you with strategies to encourage the process of proposal writing. So why then include those things in the title? Well, from my experience over the past 20 years as a part-time freelance grant writer, and of course the emphasis is on free, I have sustained some scars and some bumps and some bruises along the way and have had to learn what works and what doesn't, and that what may work for one organization, even though similar in structure, absolutely may not work for another. So my writing has evolved over time, and it has become more targeted in the way that I address each component that is unique to each client that I've worked with. And so I'm suggesting that through this webinar and the 4-week course that begins on this coming Monday, that you'll learn not the right way or the only way, but perhaps a better way to approach writing an effective grant proposal. And no, the process is not easy, not by any stretch of the imagination, but embracing a process and planning strategically will certainly make the process much more smooth. It'll be smoother for you. And so that's what I'm offering. So yes, I do have 10 strategies that I want to share with you that I believe are proven methods that will help with the grant writing process. That is why I'm here. And even those of us who are skilled grant writers and who are very, very familiar with the process will even admit very readily that grant writing is not easy. They just know how to navigate the process. And so that's precisely why I'm here for you and why I'm offering a 4-week extension course beginning on Monday, October 23rd, because you need a partner in the process. I was a vigilante for years, trying to be this Cape Crusader going about the process of grant writing alone. That is no fun. It is burdensome and it burns you out. So no, let me be the right source for you. So before we move forward though, with the rest of the course, I do want to make sure that you know that there are features available through GoToWebinar for you to communicate with me. If you'll look, I believe they're on the right-hand side of your panel. You'll see that there's a place for you to ask me questions. There's also a place for you to chat with others who are on the call. There is a poll that I will unlock and ask you, especially as it concerns who's on the call. I want to know who you represent. If you're an individual, if you're a part of an organization or a church, or if you're a startup, I want to know those things. And so I do have a poll of questions that I want you to answer for me, and it will even help me prepare for next week as you come on the course, the 4-week course with me. I've also made available to you the PowerPoint presentation under handouts. You'll see that as well. So if you're calling in from your phone and you can't view the screen I'm sharing now, you'll be able to access it at your convenience. Okay, so taking care of those housekeeping matters, we're going to go ahead and move forward now with the 10 easy steps. Okay, it is the right time for you to connect to me, the right source. Again, this is the first course that's being offered in the Write Academy. I am Giselle Jones-Jones, the founder and the CEO of both. And again, I'm just as tickled as I can be about this. This is I've been doing the business for 20 years, but the vision, my dream of having my own online academy goes back to when I started teaching years ago, back in 1990. That's a long time ago. But I've had this dream all these years, and so now they're coming to fruition. And again, you can't know how excited I am other than just to launch in with me, to jump in the water with me and go, because I'm here for you. Introductions. Who am I? I have been blessed throughout the course of my now half-century mark. I hit half-century in August this year, I'm 50. But in these years, I see myself as a leader. I'm an educator. I develop curriculum. I have worked as a curriculum facilitator in elementary. I'm a servant leader. I'm a public speaker. Certified grant writer, having received 3 certifications over the years. I'm a certified life coach and life on purpose coaching. I'm a published author. I am a playwright, an entrepreneur, and those things appear on my resume. What does not appear on my resume is that I am, just a woman who is endeavoring every day to live out my God-given purpose. I know God has given me the gift to do what I'm doing, and I'm figuring it out every day. And as I go, I'm being blessed to meet some wonderful people, and those who need my services, and those who we're just friends. We're just great life partners, and I love it. And so, again, I'm just very blessed. I am a wife. I am a mother. I'm a musician. I'm a dancer. I love puzzles. I mean, all these things that keep my mind engaged, I love. That keeps my heart open. Those things I do and have been. So what I want to know now, who are you? Who are you on the call? I'm going to release the poll now and have you just to click on, and it may be more than one. I think I have enabled it for you to check more than one. But are you a youth leader or any kind of ministry leader in your organization or your church? Are you the pastor? Are you a teacher? Are you a grant writer yourself? Are you a member of a board? Are you the chair of its board? Are you a member of the board? Are you a school principal or other administrator or just other? I've indicated other on there as a category, and then you just let me know who you are on the call. So I do want to know who you are, and that's important to me. Okay? And I also want to know what brings you here. What brings you to this particular session? What brings you to this call? Because there's got to be a reason. Is it the first time that you're writing a grant and you just need some help? You need some tips for how to get it done. You have written a grant, but it was declined. You want to know why. You want to avoid the pitfalls, the holes. Again, you want to get over the hump. Or you may be a church, wanting to plan a program where you need a grant. Or you may want to add paid positions to your staff, of your organization, and there are many, many reasons that could exist for what brings you here. But I believe that fundamentally, the reason why all of us are here is that we know that there is a grant for whatever it is that we want to do that's out there. We want to tap into it. We want to know where the money is. And I'm here to tell you, I don't know what your faith base is, but my faith tells me that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, which suggests to me that there is enough, that we have everything that we need. We just need to go look for it. And we need to ask for guidance to find it. And what I'm going to tell you is that most often you're not going to find it in a silo, which means alone. You're not going to find it alone. You're going to have to get out. You're going to have to begin to put out to the universe what you want to receive from the universe. And so there is no human need that lacks divine provision. I believe that. I believe that there is money for just about everything you can imagine, especially religious organizations and those who are doing good works. Just know that. And that the key to it all is to write your proposal to bridge the gap and to cast a vision without religious words, though. And so that's where we need help. That's where I'm here to assist in that process. Okay, so we have to be able to word things the way that will attract us to the money. Okay, so I do want to share that. But what I also want us to understand is that I'm here for one reason and one reason only. So I need for us to know right now what this session is and what it isn't. I am here for this session to talk about preparation and planning because it is a process, and the process will render on the other end a successfully written grant proposal. But we will not be writing the grant proposal today. That's not the purpose of this webinar. This session is also about providing information about the contents of a winning grant proposal. But we're not going to talk about grant opportunities here. I'm not going to share that. I'm not going to share any RFPs that may be out there now. We're not doing that in this session. Okay? So I need for us to understand that up front. Now, there is something that I believe I need to do as well, and this is something that I do share with clients on an individual basis. And it's just shifting the way that you think about grant writing. Again, people in the community who see a need want to do something about it. The way to do it requires money. It requires funding. It requires an infrastructure. It requires all of these things that the individual or the organization may lack in the beginning. And so their immediate solution for solving the problem is to get a grant. But we need to stop thinking money first, but we need to back up and consider the value that we bring to the community in which we exist. I believe that in changing the way that we think, especially as it is, because we get discouraged when the funding doesn't come, but that doesn't stop the need from existing in the community. So if we can understand the value that we have just in coming together as an organization or being visionaries and being leaders in the community, adding value to that community is going to attract the money, because people who have funding want to give to where they feel that there is value. And so value is going to attract the money, and then the money is going to create capacity. So wherever we feel that we're limited or lacking, that's going to open the door. The money is going to open the door for us to have all the volunteers we need, all the staff we need, all the resources we need, so that we can continue to add value to our community. And with increased capacity, the capacity will create more value. So it's a circle, it's a cycle that is never ending, but it starts with value, not with running after the money. So that, if we can shift the way that we think, I know that that will carry us much farther into the future. We can think of sustainability, we can think of planning that way instead of always going after money. Okay? So I need for us to understand that, right? So my job then is to help you to write the value into your proposal. What language do we have to use? So in utilizing the strategies that we discussed today, that is what we will accomplish. We're going to be writing value in, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. We've got our strategies. So, and it's a cute story that I want to add here. My father and I spent time a few weeks ago when we were in Atlanta attending a Hall of Fame induction ceremony for my deceased mom. She passed away 2 years ago, and well, this month, 2 years ago. And while it was an honor to be there, it was also just awesome being there with my father and sharing with him my vision and my dreams. You know, was starting my academy. It was a few months off at that point. I knew that my launch would be, you know, this month in October. And so we thought about, you know, coming up with my own proprietary way of sharing grant writing, you know, through my experience, through my eyes, my way of doing it that later I'll be able to certify others to do. And so we use the word, you know, with 10 strategies, because that's that number, you know, that we put out there. So we looked at words that had 10 letters. And the most fitting one, of course, was strategies. And so we sat while we were waiting on the plane, coming up with words that we knew would fit the model that I have been using for years in grant writing. And so that's what you're getting here. This is just an effort of passion and fun. And so, you know, I just owe that to my dad and to the spirit of my mother. And so as we look at what strategies are, you know, what's a strategy? A strategy is a plan of action intended to accomplish a specific goal. And so with each of the letters representing the word strategies, we're going to look at those things, and they just happen to all fit. It's amazing. But anyway, I get tickled by things like that, just how simple things are. And so the first one is self-assessment. So let's look at it. Now, what does self-assessment mean? It means that we really need to analyze who we are as an organization. You know, who are you? Who are you? Do you know your organization? Now, if you're just starting out, you probably haven't come up with a mission statement or a vision statement, but those things are critically important. And for those of you on the line who you're established already, you know, you've gotten your tax exemption and all of those things, that's great. But it's not a bad idea to revisit who you are and look at it in writing, examine it, make sure that you're living up to what you have deemed is your mission and what your vision is. So a part of the sessions that we'll have beginning next Monday will be for you to look at who you are, because in most grant proposals, one of the first things that they ask is about who you are as an organization. They want to know who you are, and then you break that down demographically, all of those things that make you an organization. But they're going to ask you your mission, they're going to ask you your vision, and then in those statements, they're going to be able to pull out the value, so, or the value that you bring. And so what we know about a mission is that a mission is an important assignment that's carried out. Okay? It is the vocation or the calling of an organization. It is the why you exist. That's what the mission statement explains. It explains what you are called to do and why you were called to do it. Okay? And with the vision is a clear, comprehensive photograph. It's like a picture of the organization at some point in the future. Okay, it provides direction because it describes the organization and what you want to be like in the future. It's what's guiding you. It's the what. It's the what that's guiding you. That's the vision. You have to visualize who you are and be able to articulate that in writing. Okay? And so values then, because in what you write, we need to be able to pull out the value. The funders want to see the value. So that describes the how. It is how will you behave toward one another or toward the stakeholders in the way that you achieve your goals. Values are the starting point of any kind of cultural change in your program. Because if you can't identify what the values are of the individuals within the organization, it's going to be difficult to connect and attract those in the community. They're going to be confused about why you exist, how you're accomplishing it. Within the organization, you must be the change you wish to see first. Okay? That's important. Self-assessment, and there is a list of questions that I will be asking you that you'll have to deal with, you as an organization. And so that part of the process is key to any proposal, but I want to help you with writing it to make sure that funders and people in the community can see and pull out of it the value. Okay? Next is your target audience. And now initially, I had the other T first, which was the team approach. But then, as I thought about it some more, I said, "Oh no, let's talk about the audience a little bit." The second strategy is identifying who will be impacted by the grant, by the proposal that you choose to write. Now, the audience is multi-layered. I'll say it that way. On one side, and we're talking about the people who are impacted by the grant. And the people impacted by the grant are not just the people in the community, but it's all the stakeholders involved. Who are these stakeholders? They're your board. They're the funders. You've got to write to them. They're a part of your audience. The staff, the community leaders, other people in the community, volunteers, the people who receive the services that you provide. All of these people are a part of the audience, and there's a demographic makeup of these people. So when you look at demography, that's the statistical data that relates to the population and the particular groups within it. So contributing factors are, you have to consider all of these. And I'm teaching in my public speaking class, they're doing audience analysis now as they prepare question of policy speeches, because the objective of that persuasive speech is to persuade the audience to think differently about a particular position, a more popular position. They're trying to persuade them to think the way they think, or to adopt a different way of looking at it. And so they have to do audience analysis. Well, that's the same thing I'm sharing here. You have to consider age, income, education, religious affiliation or non-affiliation, race, ethnicity, cultural background, geography, where you are in the state. Is it rural? Is it urban? I don't know. But all of those things we have to consider. Is it in the center of industry? All of those things we'll discuss when we are working together, one-on-one beginning on next Monday. And so again, more than these factors, we also must do our background research on the funders. We have to know who they are as an organization. We must research. We have to know what they support, why they support, who they have supported before, how much they have spent, what their philosophy and their standards are. We need to know this. We need to know what their budget is. We need to know, again, what the highest amount they've given, all of that, the least amount and why, how long they've been in existence. All of those things are important as we develop language around and write the narrative for our funders, for the grants that we're writing. All of these people play a significant role in how we will write the successful grant. The third strategy is readiness. You've got to be ready. Just because your organization has been in existence for 5 years, you may be ineffective in some ways. You may not be ready for a larger $1 million grant. You may not be ready for that. There are some grants that require organizations, they are reimbursement only. which means that the organization needs to be ready to absorb the initial cost involved in performing a grant or performing a program for which the grant was written. They reimburse you on the back end. If you're not ready for that particular, for that type of setup, then that's not the grant for you. We need to understand who we are as an organization and determine whether we are ready for certain grant opportunities. Now, again, there's funding out there for just about every program, every purpose. So there are startup funds, but it may not be $1 million that you may want. It may be 10,000 that you may need to start out in the beginning to get you what you need. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in inventory. But are you ready to receive the funding? Again, these are questions that I'll be asking you when we start talking about these things next Monday. So readiness is a critical issue. Again, making sure that your vision is clear, making sure your mission is clear, making sure that the motives of everyone in the organization are clear and apparent, transparent. So readiness, that's strategy number 3. Strategy number 4, almost along the same lines as analysis. And with analysis, it's conducting essential research in order to break down the scope of the grant project into attainable parts. And, the first thing, what you see here, of course, is the SWOT analysis. But what I want you to see is that there are 2 layers here, okay? One layer is internal. So internally, we need to look at our strengths and our weaknesses. We need to, and then based on what those things are, they will lead us to certain opportunities. And then as we look at a timeline, the timeline will suggest when it's appropriate to go for a $10,000 or $25,000 grant as opposed to a $1 million grant and all the other stipulations that go along with it. Okay? And then that there may be threats to that type of grant proposal that we may want to write or that we think we may want, but we're not ready. But then we also need to look at the external analysis. That's our community. Okay? And again, the former slide, the former strategy talked about the readiness of the organization. And again, this one talks about the readiness of the community. The community may not be ready for the $1 million proposal that we have. They just may not be. And so we need to make sure to do a close analysis of the community in which we exist. Okay? So the same process, we'll go through this, we'll ask the same questions about the larger or the greater community in which our organization resides. And again, we'll talk about this a little bit more, of course, in inventory as well, because we need to look at what we have and look at what we don't have. But that's what the SWOT analysis will allow us to do, okay? So analysis refers both to internal examination as well as external examination. And now to my other T. And again, I need to make sure I stress that this is not a linear process. It's not. The letters that make up the word strategies does not in any way suggest that we're following each of these things in one long sequence. That's not it. But understanding all of these as in totality will equip us for being prepared to write the effective grant proposal. But the team approach is, again, it's one of those lessons, those hard lessons I had to learn. Again, like I said, I've been wearing that mask, and I've been that Cape Wonder Woman, that Cape Crusader, running around thinking that she can accomplish all these things by herself. I have worn myself out that way. I have undersold and undercut people, organizations, because I was not able to get some things done on time. And again, that's the truth, that I'm being candid about it. And those are the hardest lessons, again, because people look to you, to be the one to keep things in motion. And on a couple of occasions throughout the 20 years, I was not able to do so. And it wasn't because I didn't want to, it's because I lacked the capacity at the time. I needed certain things done while I was doing a lot of the writing and trying to figure out, again, writing the narrative and making sure all these other elements were in place, that there were some things that were neglected. If I had been working on a team and been working through a timeline of accountability and people making sure that things were in place, there wouldn't have been an issue ever. I have learned that, and I'm here to tell you that the process works. Having a team. So what does the team look like? The team approach, number one, makes you more efficient. It's performing and functioning in the best possible manner with the least waste of time and effort. Okay? So who do you need to be if you were, if this were a dream team, if this were a fantasy football team, who would you want to be on this fantasy team of grant writers? Well, you need someone, of course, who is your principal writer. That is the person who has to be one of the stronger people on the team to keep things organized according to what is needed to accomplish the grant proposal. But you will also need people who are gifted in budgets, people who are gifted in connecting to the community, someone who, oh my goodness, someone who will be the layout design person, someone who will handle the research, someone who will be the gopher, because you need that. All of these people surrounding the writer can help to move the process along. And if these people are together and who are of single mind and of single purpose and understand the vision and the mission of the organization, it's almost foolproof that they will be 100% successful. A system of accountability, a system that works like a well-oiled engine will run smoothly, everyone doing his or her part, feeding it to the writer so that the writer has everything he or she needs, is what you want for your organization. With every fiber in me, this is the best approach to writing grants today. No longer vigilanteism, writing grants by yourself. Before we get on the call next week or before the second week, you will have come up with at least a 3-person team. I would prefer 5, but at least a 3-person team who will be there to support you as you write these grants. Okay? 6, effectiveness, establishing the goals, objectives, and projected outcomes of the grant project. Along with the vision and mission of your organization, when it comes to writing the actual proposal, this is where we'll start first. This is where we'll start first. We need to know what the goals are. We need to know what the objectives are. We need to know what the outcomes are, and they literally fall in that order. So once we identify about 3 or 4 goals for a particular grant project, just the project, then we're going to look at what objectives will be accomplished to accomplish the goal, and then we'll look at what the outcomes of those will be. And then a little bit later on, we'll see what the measurement tools will be to look at when we evaluate, then we'll be able to come back and look at how effective they have been. So goals, objectives, and outcomes are critical. Those things will be addressed first, and they are often the most dreaded because it's difficult to know how to write an objective, how to write the outcome. And so we will spend time through practice. We'll do that. We'll learn, look at language that's required, and then from those 3 things, then we'll be able to go through and list all the individual activities that will be done in the grant in order to accomplish it, and going back up the chain. Will those things achieve the outcome? Are they in line with the objectives? Are they in line with the goals? So all of those things we will discuss, and it will be that we'll probably dedicate an entire session to just that, because it will take it. 7, governance. Governance is key. The people who are on your board, the governing structure, these people bear fiduciary responsibility for your organization. Okay? These are people who have expertise in areas that we need. They are people who can help you by way of financing some of the initial things that you need. Now, I'm going to say this. For most startups, one of the things that you have, one of the requirements that you must have is at least a 4-person board. And you have to complete bylaws, you have to have all these things in place in order to apply for your articles of incorporation, and then of course to apply for your 501c3 tax exemption. Okay? You throw these people together. You make a phone call, you let the people know what you're trying to do, but you haven't planned anything else for them. They just exist on paper. That is faulty. We will talk about the strength of your governing board in detail during these 4 weeks. They bear responsibility. They need to be invested 100%. Okay? So the strength of your board will really determine the strength of the organization. These people bear direct responsibility for the success and sometimes failure of the organization. So we must talk about that. They bear expertise and accountability to the organization. You need to understand the board's power, okay? And we will discuss that. So you'll need to have your board members' names available so that we're not going to talk about the people individually, but we are going to talk about the expertise they bring to your organization, okay? And in doing so, in examining who they are, some people might need to go. In love, of course. But if they're not functioning or if they're not available to you as an organization or you as the executive director, then we're just going to have to love them off of the board, and we're going to identify those who we can put on the board, who can assist, and who will be invested, okay? So again, it's not to hurt anyone's feelings, but this is a very important and integral part of the process that we have to address, because again, most often in grants, in the grant proposals now, they want to know who the board is. They want to know who these people are, who they work for, what they do, what they own. They want to know it. So it's not just someone's name on the organizational documents to make an organization anymore. It's much deeper than that. So we need to understand the power of it. Now, 8, the inventory. Assessing what you have as an organization and then determining what you need for the grant project. This leads to the budget. So it's important for you to understand and to do a list. We, as an organization, if you've been in existence for 10 years, you need to sit down and look at what you have acquired in those 10 years. Do you have the equipment that you need? Do you have all the staff or personnel that you need? Do you have a budget set aside for travel? Do you have all those things? If you do not, we need to list that those are things that we do need. But we can't just arbitrarily assign an amount of money. We have to do research and look at what equipment costs. Because now, again, before in writing grants, we could just allocate $10,000 for travel and $2,500 for advertising and $500 for the phone, and we can just arbitrarily assign numbers. Funders don't want that anymore. They want to know if there's specific equipment that you need. They want to know the item number, the store where you're going to purchase it. They want to know exactly how much it costs, how many you need, and for what purpose. So now your budget requires not just a line item and an amount. They want a budget narrative. And so that is important. So as you inventory, you look at what you have, including expertise, including people who will offer services to you in kind. That has a value as well. Volunteers have a value as well. And so I'm going to lead you to those sources so that we can put a monetary attachment to everything that you list on your inventory that you have and what you need. Okay? Because that will create for us what I think, especially to a funder, that you know who you are and that you know what value you bring, you know what you have that's an asset to your organization. So those things are important. I have sheets, worksheets that I'll provide for you that will allow you to work through it to identify most things that most nonprofits and charities need. Okay? So that is a part of what we'll be doing as well throughout the 4 weeks. And then strategy 9. Strategy 9 deals with evaluation, and it's measuring the effectiveness. If we go back to the former E, okay, the effectiveness of the grant project. And if you'll notice in the little graphic there, it's a measurement. We've got to measure how successful we are, okay? And so with evaluation, we've got to make a judgment about the value that we have brought. And in order to do that, we need to identify assessment tools. Okay? What are those things that we're going to use to assess the outcomes? Okay? And so some of the ways that we can do that, of course, doing pre-assessments, doing midterm assessments, doing post-assessments, doing benchmarking. Benchmarking is important, especially if we know where we are in the beginning, then we can kind of mark where we are along the way. Of course, with goal setting, there are SMART goals, attainable goals that need to be accomplished along the way. There are other tools that we can use for implementation. That's all a part of determining how successful our program is. And again, writing that, articulating that, is what most people, or where they fall short. And so we're going to dedicate the time, of course, and all of this is going to be together, both of the E's in the same session, talking about effectiveness and then talking about evaluation. And then there's also the component in bringing in an external evaluator to come in who is neutral, who is impartial, who will come in and they will assess where you are. They know the questions to ask. They know what to look for to determine the growth of your organization and the growth of the individuals who are impacted by it. So we have to be open to that, okay? And then in our budget, we need to allocate for that, okay? Because we don't want that to come out of our pocket. So we'll allocate for it. And so then the last strategy is 10, and it's sustainability, okay? Securing additional funding, partnerships, sponsorships to sustain the grant project beyond the life of the one grant. Now, did I say only grants? No. That's not the only source for funding. And that, as what I said in the beginning, in changing, it's a paradigm shift, it's a cultural shift in the way that we think about grants. Grants aren't the only way to resolve a community's issues. Now, there's a lot of grant money out there. There are many organizations that give it. Foundations give it. There are federal grants. There are 990s in our own communities. You know, there are anonymous givers. There are donors. It's all, but most of the opportunities that we have to go out. We have to be about building relationships in the community in order to attract the money. Again, the more people can see our value, the more we're going to attract it. But we have to plan for it. So sustainability is about planning the kind where we see ourselves. The vision helps us to project it. Sustainability requires partners. It's going to require sponsors. It's going to require fundraising. Anything that we can do that keeps us in the community, that keeps what we're doing alive, that keeps what we're doing, you know, accessible to people so that they can volunteer, so they can be a part of what's happening. So sustainability is all of those things, and again, it is important for us to include it in the narrative in a way that adds value, okay? So that is another important part of the written piece that we'll spend time on. So these are the 10 strategies, okay? Making up the word strategies. It is not a linear process by any stretch of the imagination, but each one of these 10 components are critical when it comes to planning and writing an effective grant proposal. So the takeaways are, we've got to build on our strengths. We've got to plan in increments. And so that's what the 4 weeks will do. It will be broken down into manageable chunks so that we can accomplish the goal. We need to make sure that in all of this, we understand all of our stakeholders. We have to also understand that this as a process is just a guide. It's a process that needs to be followed. We know that hard work is going to go along with this, but you need to know that you have me as a partner. So our next steps then, if you have found this webinar to be successful, to be helpful, and you're ready to move to the next step, then I'm going to help you get prepared. I am going to provide a link for you to enroll. The course is $197, very reasonable for 4 weeks. At the end of it, you will have a document that will be prepared to fund for funders. It will be ready. Once you've enrolled in the class, you're going to receive an email from me containing instructions for participating in the course and how to be prepared for the course. And then once you complete all necessary documents, you'll be prepared each week to discuss what the homework has been. And so that is where we are at this point. It has been a pleasure to present this information to you. If at any point between today and Sunday night, which is the deadline for registration, call me or email me. My information is here, okay? And I am available to you. So at this time, I am going to allow you to ask questions, and you can type those in. And let me see if I have anyone who is writing a question. Okay. Jackie, I see. Okay, so you missed some of the first part. Yes, this call has been recorded. This webinar has been recorded. Yes, and I'll make it available to you. Okay? Any other questions? Okay, well, hearing none, seeing none, I'm going to conclude this session and thank you again for participating in this first course of the Write Academy, 10 easy steps to writing effective grant proposals the right way with the right source. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.